Alright guys, I'm back to do the second part of my 2015 NFL season preview. In this video, I'll be breaking down the AFC conference, giving my picks for each division, and also at the end of this video, I will give my picks for both conference championship games this season, as well as Super Bowl 50, which of course will be from Santa Clara, California this season. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first division in the AFC I'm going to talk about is the AFC East. The first team in the AFC East I'm going to talk about is the New York Jets. I really like what the Jets did this offseason. I think Todd Bowles is a great fit for them as head coach, and I like that they brought in Brandon Marshall to kind of, I guess, add another weapon to an offense that was anemic at times last year. But you look at their offense now, they have a solid offensive line led by Nick Mangold and DeBrickashaw Ferguson, and now on the outside, you got a combo of Decker and Brandon Marshall with Chris Ivory running the ball. They got a very promising young tight end in Jason Morrow. So this is an offense that's starting to come together. But again, there's a huge question mark for me at the quarterback position, whether it's Geno Smith or whether it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick. I just don't think that is going to be good enough for the Jets to get over the hump this year and make the playoffs, although I do think they'll be much improved again. I love the addition of Todd Bowles. And defensively, this team's going to be one of the best units once again in the league. They were a team last year that struggled to stop the pass, but now they bring back Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie, so they arguably have the best defensive back tandem now in the NFL. And this is a team with a very good young defensive line. Of course, they have Muhammad Wilkerson. They have Sheldon Richardson, who I believe is suspended, but still, when he gets back on the field, he's obviously going to make an impact. And they drafted Leonard Williams, the defensive lineman out of USC. So this is a team defensively that's going to be tough. Offensively, they're getting better. But again, I think the quarterback position is going to be too much for them to overcome, whether it's Geno Smith or Ryan Fitzpatrick. Again, I don't think either one of those guys is good enough to get you over that hump. So I have the Jets going 7-9 this season. Definitely a team that's going to be improved, but still not a playoff team. Next team I'm going to talk about, the Buffalo Bills. Like the Jets, I really liked what they did this offseason. I think Rex Ryan is a great fit for that city, for that franchise, and for just this team with the way they play. Like the Jets, I think offensively they're going to be a lot better this year. I think Tyrod Taylor is going to be a lot better quarterback than people think. People forget he had a very solid career at Virginia Tech, and he's a dynamic guy. I mean, he's obviously a guy that can make plays with his legs, and you add that type of athlete at the quarterback position with the athletes that are surrounding him on the offensive side of the football for Buffalo. You look at Percy Harvin now. They brought in Charles Clay. Of course, they got LaShawn McCoy in the trade for Kiko Alonso. They still have Sammy Watkins. So this is a explosive offense that has a bunch of big play guys. So I think this is going to be a much better offense, especially in terms of their ability to kind of hit that home run play. And defensively, of course, they're going to be great, and they're going to be even better with Rex Ryan coming in. You got a defensive mind and a guy with the attitude that Rex Ryan has. You add that to this defensive group, which is already one of the best defenses in the NFL. That's a formula for success. So I think Buffalo is going to be good. I think they're going to be scrapping all year for one of those last wild card spots in the AFC. I think they ultimately will probably come up a little short, but they're going to be a lot better this year. I have them going 8-8, and I'm really excited to see what this team does this year, especially on the offensive side of the football. Now to the Miami Dolphins. I sound like a broken record here, but I like what they did in the offseason as well. They bring in Ndamukong Suh to really fortify the middle of their defense, be kind of that anchor on their defensive line, and offensively they improved a ton. They brought in Jordan Cameron, who's going to be a big play tight end for them. They brought in Kenny Stills from New Orleans. They have Jarvis Landry coming back, of course, for his second season. He had a stellar rookie season for them last year coming out of LSU. They drafted Devontae Park, who I think is going to be a stud this year. I thought he was the best receiver in this last year's draft class coming out of Louisville. And, you know, they brought in Greg Jennings as well. So this is a team that now has a ton of weapons offensively. They got better defensively, bringing in a huge piece like Sue. They got Cameron Wake still on that side of the ball. They got an underrated secondary led by Brent Grimes. And, of course, they got Ryan Tannehill, who's a emerging young quarterback. I think he's going to continue to get better now that he has so many weapons to his disposal. It's only going to, I think, take his game to that next level. And they still have Lamar Miller to run the ball with. So this is a team that is so balanced. I like Joe Philbin. I like what Miami's building there. Like Buffalo, I think they're going to be scrapping for one of those last AFC wildcard spots this year. I have them going 9-7. I think they might fall just short too, but I think they're definitely going to be in the hunt. They definitely can win a lot more than 9 games this year, but I have them going 9-7. Really like the Dolphins team. I think they're going to have a heck of a year. And the last team I'm going to talk about in the AFC East, of course, is the defending Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots. They look pretty damn good last night, didn't they, against the Pittsburgh Steelers to kick off the season. So they're already 1-0. But this is a team that pretty much returns everyone from that Super Bowl team with the exception of Vince Wilfork, Darrelle Revis, and Brandon Browner. And honestly, I don't think those losses are going to affect them so much, especially Vince Wilfork. They got a ton of young talent along their defensive front. And this is one of the best front sevens in the game, one of the best linebacking cores in the games in New England with Jamie Collins, Dante Hightower, and Gerard Mayo. They got Rob Ninkovich and Chandler Jones to rush the passer. They brought in Jabal Sheard, who's another guy that can rush the passer. They got Dominic Easley and Malcolm Brown, two very young defensive tackles. So this is a front seven that's very solid. Again, they lost two huge pieces in Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner, and I think the loss of those two guys will affect them more probably in the postseason than it will the regular season. But New England's still going to be a heck of a team to beat. I think they got a great shot to repeat this year. Obviously, offensively, they still got number 12, Tom Brady. They got Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman. They're still going to be able to score on anyone. And it's the best fourth quarter team in football. So I think New England's going to win the AFC East again. I have them going 12-4. I think it's going to be a great year for them. They're going to be right there again, competing for a Super Bowl to repeat as Super Bowl champions. But I do think that loss of Revis and Brandon Browner will definitely kind of affect them come postseason time. Now to the AFC West, obviously the division that I'm sure most of you are most invested in, as well as obviously am I. Obviously you can tell by the name of my channel, Denver Broncos Show. I think the AFC West is going to be a lot better division than people think. First team I'm going to talk about in the AFC West is the Oakland Raiders. Love kind of the culture change that's going on in Oakland. Really love the pieces they're starting to put in place there. I think Jack Del Rio, with his confidence, his swagger, if you will, just his style of coaching, I think fits perfectly in with the Raiders and what they're trying to do right now. Defensively, they're a very underrated group. They obviously have a very solid pass rush with Khalil Mack, Justin Tuck. They obviously got a great veteran leader in the back end of their secondary, and Charles Woodson. And today they just added Aldon Smith, who obviously got let go by the Niners, has had some off-the-field problems. But now you got Aldon Smith with Khalil Mack, with Justin Tuck. They got some guys to get to the passer, and I think they're going to be a very solid defensive group. And offensively, they're making huge strides. Derek Carr, I'm a huge fan of. I think he is the franchise quarterback that this franchise has been desperately waiting for. And now they're starting to put some pieces around him. Latavius Murray, I think, is going to have a huge year. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL today. They bring in Amari Cooper, who's an absolute stud out of Alabama, who's their first-round pick this year, and a guy that I think is probably going to be a top 5 to 10 wideout in this league very soon. And they got two really solid young tight ends in Mike Rivera and Clive Walford, so they can attack you a couple different ways in the red zone. So they're putting pieces together there. And again, I like Derek Carr a lot. I like his confidence. He's a guy that I think really wants the ball in those clutch situations. And now that he's got a huge target on the outside like Cooper and a great running back like Latavius Murray to hand it off to, I just think that this is a team that's trending up. I really like what Oakland's doing. So I'm not sure they'll make the playoffs this year, but I think they're going to go 8-8. I'm pretty high on the Raiders this year. I definitely think they're going to be a relevant team. They're probably going to be a spoiler type team late in the season. And like the Buffalo Bills, as I mentioned before, that they might come up short getting one of those AFC wildcard spots, but I think they're going to be scrapping all year for that last AFC wildcard spot. Again, really like what the Raiders are doing. Now, the next team in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Kansas City is very overrated, personally, going into this year. I like what they did in bringing in Jeremy Maclin. Obviously, he's a guy that's familiar with Andy Reid's offensive system, is a speedster on the outside. Obviously, he's a big play waiting to happen. It can take the top off of a defense, be that vertical down the field threat that this Kansas City Chiefs offense desperately needs. They still have Jamal Charles. They got Travis Kelce, who's one of the best tight ends in the game. So offensively, I think they'll be better. But defensively, they're pretty much the same group. They're going to be solid there. They're not going to wow anybody, but they got obviously one of the premier pass rushers in Justin Houston, Derek Johnson there. Eric Berry is coming back, obviously, from his bout with cancer. So they got some talent on both sides of the football. I think they'll be a little bit better offensively, but I still think people are just vastly overvaluing them. I think they'll be in the wild card hunt, but I think they'll probably fall a little short. I got Kansas City going 9-7 this year, and to me it just comes back to the fact that I just don't think Alex Smith is that guy at the quarterback position to get you over that hump. Again, they might sneak into the playoffs, find a back door into the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be that good. Again, I have Kansas City going 9-7. I think people are really overrating them going into this year. Now to the next team I'm going to talk about in the AFC West, of course, the San Diego Chargers. Really like what they did in the offseason, bringing in Melvin Gordon. I think he's going to be a very good running back for them. I think he adds a new dynamic to their offense that they didn't have before. And I think they're obviously going to be a lot tougher to stop offensively with him now in the fold. They signed Phillip Rivers to a contract extension. They brought in Orlando Franklin, of course, from us to fill in at the left guard spot for them. So their offensive line's a little bit better this year. They still got, obviously, weapons on the outside with Malcolm Floyd, Keenan Allen, of course. They brought in Stevie Johnson, who I think is going to have a big year for them. And defensively, this is a really, really good young group. They got Monte Te'o, they got Donald Butler, they got Corey Legit, Kendall Reyes, Melvin Ingram, Brandon Flowers, of course, Eric Weddle, Jason Verrett back there in the secondary. I mean, this is a defense that is very, very stout and I think very, very good at each level. I think the Chargers probably have one of the most underrated defenses going into the season this year. But again, I like what Melvin Gordon brings to the table for them offensively. I think they're going to be a good team. I think they're going to be a playoff team this year. I have them going 10-6. I definitely think the Chargers are going to have a very solid year. And of course, the last team in the AFC West, the team that I'm most invested in, team that I think is going to win the division, the Denver Broncos. I think we're going to have a really good year. I don't think we're going to go 12-4, 13-3 again. I think we're going to have our moments this year and struggle. We obviously have a tough schedule this year, but people are giving us no respect, and I love it. The lack of national respect we're getting, I think, is great for our team. The fact that we don't have all this pressure on us to be a Super Bowl contender or the favorite in the AFC, whatever, I think is great for our team. I love the addition of Gary Kubiak. His energy is better than John Fox's. He's more charismatic. I love his scheme more. I mean, John Fox is about as entertaining as watching paint dry. So to get a guy in now at the head coaching position like Gary Kubiak, who is really enthusiastic and kind of has the energy and, again, charisma that he has, I think is great for our team. And his offensive system, I think, is going to take us to another level. I think it's going to make us much more balanced on that side of the football. Our offensive line is extremely underrated. I think Tyson Brilo and Max Garcia are two really good rookies along that offensive front that are going to have impacts this year. We brought in Evan Mathis to solidify the inside of our offensive line. We got Luis Vasquez, so our offensive line is underrated. Of course, you got C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman in the backfield. Obviously, they're going to have to step up for us to be balanced on the offensive side of the football. And then, Peyton Manning, he's still got number 18. I know people keep saying he's shot and this and that and the other, but the guy, he's not going to throw 55 touchdowns, but he's still going to probably throw 35 to 40 TDs. He's still going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's got a ton of weapons to utilize, again, with DT, who we locked up to a new contract extension, Emmanuel Sanders, Cody Latimer, who I think might have a breakout year. And at the tight end position, we got two guys that are very capable, Owen Daniels and Virgil Green. So we're going to be a tough team to stop in the red zone. And then defensively, I don't know why no one's talking about us defensively. I love it because I think the Broncos really have a top 3 defense. If you look at the talent across the board on the defensive side of the football for us, this is the best defensive unit we've had in years. You talk about Chris Harris, you talk about Aqib Talib, T.J. Ward, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, Dane Trevathan, Brandon Marshall, Shane Ray, of course, who we drafted, Darius Kilgo, who we drafted at the nose tackle position, who looks like it's still. You got Malik Jackson. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few other guys, but I mean, we are stacked on the defensive side of the football. And I think really we're going to have one of the better pass rushes in the NFL this year. We're going to have one of the better secondaries. And we're just really balanced on the defensive side of the football. Again, with a ton of talent. Bradley Roby, of course, as well. Forgot to mention him, I think. So just talent everywhere across this defense. And I think we're going to have a good year. I think we're going to win the AFC West. And we're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams once again in the AFC. I have the Broncos going 11-5. And again, winning the AFC West. I think a lot of people are sleeping us, especially on the defensive side of the football going into this year. Moving on to the next division, the AFC North. First team I want to talk about in the AFC North is the Cleveland Browns. Like the Redskins, I mentioned in my preview for the NFC, this team's just a mess to me. They have a ton of question marks at the quarterback position. I mean, when Josh McCown and Johnny Manziel are your 2 options at quarterback, that's obviously not a good thing. I like their defense. I think they got a ton of talent on that side of the football. Joe Hayden, Dante Whitner. They drafted Danny Shelton, who I like. They brought in Tremont Williams from Green Bay. They got Paul Kruger. They got a lot of talent defensively. I think this is going to be one of the better defensive units in the NFL this year. But offensively, they just bring nothing to the table. And I think their defense is going to be on the field so much this year pretty much they're just not going to score enough points to win many games this year. So I got the Browns going 4-12 again. Another tough season for them. Next team I want to talk about in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this offense is going to take that next step this year. I'm still not really high on Andy Dalton. I think he's a guy that chokes in big moments. But they get Tyler Eifert back at the tight end position, obviously coming off that elbow injury. I think he's probably the only tight end in the NFL that can somewhat replicate what Gronkowski does in New England, and I think he could be that guy that takes this offense to the next level. And of course, they got Jeremy Hill, who's starting at running back for them, one of the better physical running backs in the game, one of the best running backs in the game at running in between the tackles and getting yards after contact. I think that combo of Eifert and Hill, adding them to this offense with A.J. Green, of course, and Andy Dalton, I think those two guys could take this offense to the next level this season. And of course, defensively, they're going to be solid. They got one of the best defensive lines in football. They got a great pass rush. I think they're going to be in the thick of things for one of those wild card spots. I have them going 9-7 this season. Next team in the AFC North, I'm going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, Baltimore's always going to be in the hunt just because John Harbaugh is a great coach, and this is a battle-tested, proven team. They lost to Lodi Nada on the defensive side of the football, but they still got a very, very good group, of course, led by Terrell Suggs. They got C.J. Mosley, Ladarius Webb, Jimmy Smith. I mean, this is a team. They brought in Kyle Arrington. They got a solid secondary. This is a team that is a very solid defensive group. And hey, Joe Flacco is a very capable quarterback, probably one of the more undervalued quarterbacks in the NFL today. Not having their first-round pick at wide receiver, Bashad Perriman, going in the season, I think definitely hurts them. But they got some weapons on the offensive end. They still got Justin Forsett. They got a very good interior offensive line. And again, Joe Flacco is more than capable. I think Baltimore, they're just such a battle-tested, proven team that they're going to find ways to win games this year. And I have them going 10-6. I definitely think they'll be in the playoffs once again this season. And the last team in the AFC North, I'm going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they will win this division. Of course, they just lost the season opener to the Patriots, but they played poorly in that game, and they only lost by 1 touchdown. But this is a team that offensively is just loaded. This could be the best offensive group and team with the most offensive power in all the league. Big Ben obviously is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Antonio Brown might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Le'Veon Bell might be the best running back in the NFL. Obviously, he's serving a 2-game suspension, but once he gets back on the field, he's just going to add again another dimension to an already stacked offense. They got Marcus Wheaton and Martavis Bryant, who I think are great young wide receivers and great complements to Antonio Brown. And Heath Miller, again, one of probably the most underrated players in the NFL and one of the better tight ends in the NFL. So offensively, this is a unit that's going to be arguably the best in the league. Defensively, obviously, there is a ton of questions, especially in their secondary. I think their secondary might be one of the worst in the league, but they are a young, emerging front seven. They got Jarvis Jones, Ryan Shazier, two very fast linebackers on the outside, Cameron Hayward, kind of the anchor inside. Again, this is a young defense that's improving. A lot of questions in the back end, as you saw in the opener against New England, but I still think Pittsburgh's going to be a great offensive team. They're going to be good enough defensively to win a lot of games, and they're going to put up a lot of points on just about anyone. So I got Pittsburgh winning the AFC North this year, probably being a top three team in the AFC, and I have them finishing 11-5 this season. And now to the last division I'll be talking about in the AFC South, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Jacksonville will be better this year, but they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Their offensive line is improving. I like Blake Bortles. I think he's only going to get better this year, and he's going to keep improving. I think eventually he will be that guy at the quarterback position for this franchise. I love that they brought in T.J. Yeldon at the running back position. I think him and Denard Robinson gives them a nice 1-2 punch there at the running back position. Obviously, they brought in Julius Thomas, who will be a dynamic weapon for them to utilize, but he's going to be hurt for the first couple of games. They got two very solid young wideouts on the outside with Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson, as well as Marquise Lee. So this is a young, improving offense and a very underrated defense. I think this is a defense that's pretty solid at each level. Again, they're not going to blow you away, but this is a defense that is probably going to be better than expected. I still think Jacksonville is again in a rebuilding mode. They're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, but they're on the right track. Obviously, losing their first-round pick, Dante Fowler Jr., to ACL, that hurts a lot. I think if he would have been healthy going in this season, they might have been a better team. But I like what Jacksonville's doing. I think they're at least headed in the right direction. I think they're going to go 5-11 in this year. Again, still rebuilding, but on the right track. Tennessee, like Jacksonville, I think probably will be one of the worst teams in the AFC and in the NFL this year, but they are in the right, going in the right direction. They finally get a face at quarterback with Marcus Mariota, who I think is going to be a very, very good quarterback, probably one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL within the next 5 or so years. And he's got some weapons, man. This is a very underrated receiving core in Tennessee. They got a very, very good tight end in Delaney Walker. They got a very, very good young wide receiver in Dorial Green-Beckham, who's a guy to watch, especially in fantasy football. He's a guy that's got all the physical tools to be one of the best wide receivers in the game today, especially with a guy like Marcus Mariota throwing him the ball. They brought in Harry Douglas from Atlanta, and they got Kendall Wright, 2 speedsters there. So I think Mariota, he's got some weapons to utilize. And defensively, they're going to be solid, man. This is a team that's got a good pass rush with Brian Orakpo, with Derek Morgan, Jarrell Casey. They brought in Dick LeBeau to be their defensive coordinator. They got Ken Wisenhunt, of course, as their head coach. This is a team, to me, that's just starting to put the pieces together. And again, like Jacksonville, probably not going to be so good this year, but definitely headed in the right direction. And I love that they now have Mariota in place there to start building their team around. So like Jacksonville, I have them going 5-11, taking a slight step forward, and again, moving in the right direction. Next team in the AFC South, I'm going to talk about the Houston Texans. They seem to be a trendy pick for like a breakout team in the AFC this year. I'm just not really seeing it. I think offensively they are very limited. I like Bill O'Brien. I think he's got a great offensive system, but I don't care if it's Brian Hoyer or Ryan Mallett. I just don't think either one of those guys is good enough to get you in the playoffs. Obviously, defensively, this is going to be a great group. They have arguably the best player in football in J.J. Watt. They bring in Vince Wilfork from New England. If Jadeveon Clowney can stay healthy, this might be the best defensive line in football. But Arian Foster's going to start the season hurt. I'm not really sure about Alfred Blue being the number 1 running back, how good you're going to be running the ball if he's your number 1 guy. Their offensive line is somewhat shaky. And again, they have limited weapons on the outside. I like DeAndre Hopkins a lot, but past him, there's not a whole lot of talent at the skill positions offensively for this team. And again, Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, I think both are very solid quarterbacks, but probably not good enough to get you in the playoffs. So I think Houston will be a solid team. They'll probably be a tough team to beat at home, but I have them going 7-9 this year. And once again, kind of just being on the outside looking in the AFC. And the last team I'm going to talk about in the AFC South, a team obviously that I have winning the division, the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, what offseason they had, bringing in Frank Gore from San Francisco, bringing in Andre Johnson from Houston to pair with T.Y. Hilton. They got Coby Fleener and Dwayne Allen at the tight end positions. Of course, they have a little guy by the name of Andrew Luck, who is either the best quarterback in football or the second best quarterback in football. It's got to be him or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. I mean, those are probably the 3 best. So offensively, this is, like Pittsburgh, probably going to be one of the best groups in the NFL. I love Chuck Pagano. I think he's a great leader, and I think his team loves him. And I just think the chemistry of this team with Chuck Pagano is very, very strong right now. Their defense, I have a ton of questions about. I think they're a pretty mediocre defensive team. I think their secondary is pretty average, but they're at least physical. And again, their defensive line is, to me, very, very, very questionable. But offensively, they got a ton of talent. They're in a cake division. And with Andrew Luck and now T.Y. Hilton and Andre Johnson and Frank Gore to hand the ball off to, I mean, this is a team that's going to be tough to stop. So I got Indy winning the AFC South and honestly probably finishing with the best regular season record in the AFC this season, going 13-3. So to recap, in the AFC, the teams I have making the playoffs, I have Indy finishing as the number 1 seed in the AFC this year, going 13-3. Then I have New England finishing second, going 12-4. Pittsburgh finishing third, going 11-5. Us, the Denver Broncos, going being fourth, going 11-5. Then I have Baltimore and San Diego getting those 2 wildcard spots in the AFC, both of them finishing 10-6. And then teams like Miami, Kansas City, and Cincinnati, I have them all at 9-7, really on the cusp of getting one of those wild card spots if Baltimore, San Diego falls out, or maybe even Pittsburgh, or if the Broncos lose a little more games. Obviously, one of those teams could sneak in, and then even Oakland and Buffalo at 8-8. I think those are 2 kind of sleeper teams to watch in the AFC that could play spoiler and maybe sneak into that last wild card spot. I got that out of the way. Just going to give my quick picks for the conference championship games in the NFC. I don't really see much changing. I think it's going to be a rematch of last year's NFC championship game. I think it's going to be Green Bay versus Seattle in the NFC title game. Once again, to me, it's just everyone is just trying to catch them in the NFC. I think the NFC is a better conference than the AFC. I think there's a lot of talented teams in the NFC, and the NFC this year I think is going to be a bloodbath, especially for those last 2 wild card spots. But I just think Green Bay and Seattle are just on a whole nother level than everyone else in the NFC. And again, I have them rematching the NFC title game. And then in the AFC title game this year, I have the Denver Broncos making it. I really, people can call me a homer or whatever, but I really think our defensive group this year is good enough to carry us to that point. And I do think people are sleeping on us. I think we're going to be kind of a dark horse, and I think the lack of respect we're getting going into this season, I think is just only going to fuel the fire. So I have the Broncos being 1/2 of the AFC title game this season, going up against the New England Patriots, who I think will be back there once again. I just like Green Bay and Seattle. I think New England is just on another level. Again, they're the best fourth quarter team in the NFL. So come playoff time in a one-game elimination setting, they're just going to be a tough team to beat, especially down the stretch, and especially if they're at home. Again, Indy, Pittsburgh, both those teams I could see being in the mix as well. I think those are probably the two best offensive teams in the NFL, but I got Denver taking on New England. And the last pick, of course, Super Bowl 50, the two teams I have playing in the Super Bowl. I have Green Bay avenging the loss last year to Seattle this year in the NFC title game, getting to Super Bowl 50 to take on the New England Patriots. Once again, I think the Patriots will get back to the Super Bowl. I think they will beat the Broncos in the AFC title game at home. I think they're better than Indy. They're better. They clearly showed they're better than Pittsburgh already. And again, they're just going to be such a tough team to beat. So Super Bowl 50, I got the Green Bay Packers taking on New England in Santa Clara, California. And in that game, I got the Green Bay Packers beating New England to win a Super Bowl, give Aaron Rodgers his second ring. I know they lost Jordy Nelson, but as I mentioned in my NFC preview, this is a team that I think is going to be forced to play more physical without Jordy Nelson, which I think is going to benefit them. I think they have one of the best offensive lines in football. Eddie Lacy is arguably the second or third best running back in the game. And I know Jordy Nelson is gone, but Devontae Adams to me is going to supplant his production and again is a star waiting to happen. They still have Randall Cobb. You know, they still have a ton of talent on the offensive side of football. And then defensively, like the Broncos, I feel they're just getting not a whole lot of respect. They got guys that can get to the passer and Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers. And this secondary is so underrated. They may arguably have the best safety tandem in the game behind Seattle with Morgan Burnett and HaHa Clinton-Dix, Casey Hayward at the defensive back position. So it's a very good secondary unit with guys that can get to the quarterback. I just like what Green Bay's doing. And I think they're going to be able to overcome adversity and kind of make up for the loss of Jordy Nelson and to be a more physical team again. And when Aaron Rodgers is kind of put on the back burner, if you will, whereas it's like, okay, we're going to be more physical, we're going to pound the rock with Eddie and then throw it, that just makes them even more dangerous. So I got Green Bay again beating New England in Super Bowl 50 to win this year's Super Bowl in Santa Clara, California. Again, give Aaron Rodgers and crew their second ring. My preview, guys, for the 2015 NFL season, of course, the AFC Conference and my Super Bowl pick. So leave me a comment below. What do you guys think is going to happen in the AFC this year? What do you think is going to happen in the NFC this year? And leave me your guys' pick in the comments selection below for the AFC title game, the NFC title game, and of course Super Bowl 50. Thank you for watching, guys. Enjoy the season. I definitely be making videos this year. Not going to do a preview of the Broncos and Ravens, but I'll definitely be back for a recap. Can't wait to see the Broncos back on the field and open the season up against a team that obviously we don't like very much and doesn't like us very much. So should be a fun start to the year. Thank you for watching, guys. Good luck to all the teams this year, and should be a fun season. Take